Paul Ryan said today on CNN that there's not going to be a deportation force. Mr. Trump has said that he's going to incorporate some ideas of Obamacare, which he talked about on the stump too. Now that he's president, are a lot of the things that seem to be bright lines in the campaign, are they much more negotiable?
Well, I think if you listen to the brief section you had from 60 Minutes, there are going to be substantial deportations. They're called criminals. I mean, 2 million people would be a lot of people to deport, and if at the same time you gain control of the border, and if you passed a guest worker program, you'd be a long way towards then, 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, dealing with the rest of the folks who are here without legal permission. And I think by that stage we would accommodate it in some way. I think in terms of Obamacare, it's going to be repealed, but there are certain aspects of it that are very widely supported. And if you know, you don't want to capriciously take away the right of somebody to be on their parents' insurance till 26. You want to protect the right to have insurance coverage without any kind of precondition. But that means if you're not going to have a mandate, which we're not, and it hasn't been effective, I mean, they can't punish young people with taxes enough to get them to buy insurance, then you better have a high-risk pool, which Paul Ryan has suggested, or some device so that if you have a precondition but you're not insured, you still are going to get health care.
Let me ask you about the sense of conflict in this country. There were 60 million people who didn't vote for Mr. Trump. Why should, or help explain to somebody who didn't vote for him and who, there are people going around saying, not my president. In part, Donald Trump rose to prominence by challenging the idea that Barack Obama was a legitimate president. Said he wasn't born in America, there was no evidence of that. Spent 5 years saying he was illegitimate. Why should anybody who doesn't like Donald Trump think, oh, well, I should think he's legitimate now?
Well, it's a question of whether or not you want America to be a successful venture. And I think, frankly, if you're hard left, it's very hard to imagine why you're going to accommodate a Trump presidency. Because the two goals of this, remember, George W. Bush was attacked from day one by the hard left. Obama was attacked from day one by conservatives. We've now been through 16 years of this siege warfare. Yeah. And interestingly, while we got involved in a fight with Clinton, no one ever attacked the legitimacy of the Clinton presidency, or Bush one, or Reagan, or Carter for that matter.
Part of what this stems from is the campaign that Mr. Trump ran. In the National Review, Ian Tuttle writes about this divisive campaign. He says, quote, his victory in the primaries gave unprecedented visibility to the alt-right, a small but vocal fringe of white supremacists and anti-Semites and self-proclaimed fascists. Supporting a President Trump cannot mean giving a pass to the ugly fringe that has risen with him. What does Donald Trump have to do to address that?
I just have to say that's garbage.
Even though it's coming from the National Review.
Yeah, I don't care where it's at. This whole notion, it's like the Washington Post had this columnist the other day who pointed out that we were on the anniversary of Kristallnacht, which is the night when the Nazis attacked Jewish businesses. And I'm thinking, I mean, this is crazy. Donald Trump is a mainstream conservative who wants to profoundly take on the left. The left is infuriated that anybody would challenge the legitimacy of their moral superiority. And so the left goes hysterical. But the fact is, and you get this with all these smears of Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon is a naval officer. He was a managing partner at Goldman Sachs. He was a Hollywood movie producer. The idea that somehow he represents, I'd never heard of the alt-right until the nutcase started writing about it.
But so your point is, it's garbage, therefore Donald Trump doesn't have to deal with it.
Donald Trump has to be Donald Trump, and the country will organize itself around who he is.
Does being Donald Trump mean keeping the Twitter account? What's your advice on that?
My advice to that is to always have an editor.
But still keep tweeting.
No, sure. I mean, look, it's a technique for reaching 13 or 14 million people at no cost and gets him around the New York Times.
What do you want to do in this administration, if anything?
I want to help plan the restructuring of the federal government.
And so that sounds like a domestic role.
No, it's the restructuring of the federal government.
One of the questions
including state and defense.
One of the questions people had about Donald Trump is whether anyone can tell him no. Can anyone tell Donald Trump no?
Oh, maybe Ivanka or Melania? I don't know.
And
look, this is a very strong-willed guy who has risen in remarkable ways. He's worth $4 to $10 billion. He beat 15 other people for the nomination. He beat Secretary Clinton for the presidency. He took on virtually the entire national media and beat him. He has a great deal of faith in his own instincts. And you have to say, most days he's more right than we were.
All right. Speaker Gingrich, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.